So, from the title of this video, you know what we're going to be talking about, and you've heard it before. Feminism is the movement that liberated women. It gave us rights and shattered the chains of the patriarchy. But what if I told you that the story that we've been sold is only part of the truth? What if I told you that the feminism movement wasn't really about liberating women at all? Would you believe me if I told you that the patriarchy is not the modern day woman's biggest oppressor, but the woman, we've actually become our own biggest oppressors? And would you believe me if I told you that in 2025, we are no longer living in the patriarchy, but instead the matriarchy? Today, we're talking about the spiritual roots of feminism, its hidden agendas, and the truths many, if not most, don't know, and what are the facts and the actual history that your women and gender study courses might have left out. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to my channel. In 2024, to question feminism and to question its benefits and goodness basically means you hate women. And it obviously means you wish for the enslavement and oppression of women. I know for men, if God forbid they question anything pertaining to women in today's day and age, not even just feminism, they will be shunned and immediately labeled as misogynistic. And I know for the women that question the teachings and the benefits of feminism, or to even so much as insinuate that as a woman we may be playing a part in our own suffering and the things in society that we glorify and take part in the name of feminism, and that those very teachings and behaviors from feminism do more harm than good. Well, if you imply that, you're obviously a self-hating, internally misogynistic pick-me. Why would you say that? Why would you say that? But y'all know I like to ask questions. I do. So I did ask the questions. Now, most women today pride themselves on being feminists. And I mean, I get it, okay, because I lived it and I was it at one point. You know, God is a woman, girls run the world, girl power, independent, boss babe, and the list goes on. And you know what? It feels good. It felt empowering and it just felt right, you know? Yeah, women are gods and women are better than men and we can do what men do and, you know, all that. Girls rule, boys drool. Y'all know. But toxic feminism hasn't just affected women, but men as well. We're seeing more men become less masculine than ever before as a byproduct of women telling them that everything they do is replicating toxic masculinity. Men want to go 50-50 because God forbid a man wants to take care of the finances in the home, and then you're enslaved. And that would jeopardize you being an independent woman. Men no longer know how to value a great woman because for every one good woman, it's 17 exercising her right to be sexually liberated. And some of them even see it as a confidence boost to get a taken man and being the cause of another woman's heartbreak. It's now a badge of honor today. I'll take your man. Break up with your girlfriend. Cause I'm both. That came from somewhere.
If you fuck with me, I'll take your man. Break up with your girlfriend. Yeah, cause I'm bored. I'ma fuck your man cause I'm petty idiot.
Gone are the days when men see a woman struggling with groceries or struggling to carry something heavy and he just offers to help, because why wouldn't he do that? They don't do that anymore because duh, we can do what men do. We can do it ourselves. And if the testosterone in him gets a little too carried away and he does go and help a woman out that needs it, well, that's harassment. Why would you do that? Men no longer even really value sex with a woman because it's as easily obtained today as asking for a pencil. And the trendy looks 9 times out of 10 involves women making themselves a visual playground for men. There's no more mystery. There's no more imagining. There's just a lot of ass and even more cleavage. The options for a great husband today seem to be dwindling, while the amount of men who just want something fun and casual, it keeps increasing. Women today are more educated than at any other point in history. We're even surpassing men. Women are more financially successful than ever before. We're holding executive positions in Fortune 500 companies. Women are more in tune with their sexuality more than ever. Women hold the most positions in political spaces than ever before. So why is it that with all these accomplishments afforded to us through feminism, we're also more unhappy than ever. We're more stressed than ever. We are more unfulfilled than at any other point in history, despite being early feminists' wildest dreams. Could it be possible that in the fight to be like men and emasculate men, we might have got it wrong? That God making men and women different and good and bad at different things was for a purpose, and harder we say no to what he has said yes to, then we will continue to be the antagonists in our own suffering. Could it be because the very things feminists tell women to shun and dismiss are the very things that make us actually empowered? Not the girl bossing your way into running 5 businesses alone in the name of independence, not the sexual liberation, not acting like a woman and thinking like a man, not the normalizing of procedures that completely disconnects us from our bodies and rids us from the consequences of our own actions, but those things that we shun are our sensitivity, our nurturing nature to want to fix and heal broken people, our natural inclinations of getting giddy and googly-eyed when we see a cute chunky baby, our spiritual sensitivity to call things out when we sense something off or it just doesn't feel right. The superpowers it seems that we gain when we create life. I don't know about y'all, but every single powerful woman that I know that has had an actual impact in my life is a mother. And something tells me y'all might agree. Even down to our way of making things given to us more beautiful, and we call it a woman's touch. What's in it for feminists, for women to not lean into these natural inclinations? I'll tell you why. And we're gonna talk about God real quick. Y'all know how I get down. God has a very specific love for his daughters, and with that very specific love comes a very specific attack from the enemy towards women. And it's not because of the reasons you keep hearing, or God hates women and Christianity is oppressive to women. It is because the only barrier between the savior of man and the enemy having complete dominion over this earth was a woman. It's because for every prophet, every pastor, every evangelist, speaker, Christian artist, and any human being that has ever or will ever lead more people to God's kingdom, the only barrier between that is a woman. The only reason Moses survived when the king wanted to kill every male baby was a mother that risked her life to save her babies, a sister that made sure he made it safely as far down the river as her legs could take her, a grieving woman whose heartbreak, it led her to raising him as her own. It was a woman named Beauty, her prayer and her fasting that saved God's people from being slaughtered. And although Eve's disobedience led to the downfall of man, it is through her, in my opinion, that we learn 4 things. The first one is how dangerous it is when a woman steps out of God's instructions, and how detrimental it can be not only to herself, but to those she may impact around her, whether she knows it or not. 2, that Eve's ability to convince Adam to disobey God despite knowing God before Eve, despite getting specific instruction directly from God, despite Adam being around a tree before Eve was even a thing. What that tells me is that we don't have to be men to yield power over a man that's in love with his bride. The third thing that Eve told me was, despite how in the wrong a woman can be, we will never be judged or treated as harshly as a man. Double standards, as we call it. We see that in the Bible and we see it in the world. Eve gave Adam the fruit, but God called Adam's name, not Eve's. And he demanded an answer from Adam, not Eve, despite knowing Eve was the direct reason Adam even ate the fruit. And the fourth thing that we learn from Eve, a woman, men and women are held at different standards in the eyes of God, which would have to mean there are not only biological differences between men and women, but spiritual ones as well. So what's in it for feminists? What was in it for the early feminists to try to separate us from our natural inclinations as women? The spiritual side of feminism and its direct opposition to Christianity. Let's start with something most people don't talk about: the spiritual roots of feminism. Many of the early feminists were deeply involved in occult practices. Take, for example, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Matilda Joslyn Gage, 2 prominent leaders of the women's suffrage movement, Both were outspoken critics of Christianity, seeing it as oppressive to women, as most people do, seeing women be oppressed in the Bible. Gage even wrote extensively about her disdain for the church and praised witchcraft as a form of female empowerment.
But it really wasn't until 1893 with Matilda Joslyn Gage, an American suffragist. She wrote a book called Woman, Church and State, and it reframed the European witch hunts as actually a misogynistic attempt by the church and state to police female sexuality, women's bodies, women's reproductive function, and that is, to my knowledge, the first time the word witch was used in a positive way. And the funny thing about her is that her son-in-law was L. Frank Baum, who wrote The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And so he was inspired by her writing to conceive of the witch as not only evil, but also good. So we have these polarities of the good witch and the bad witch.
And we see that today, like a lot of these celebrities are literal witches. Like, I'm not even saying that to be dramatic. Like they're literally witches. Like, they practice witchcraft. A lot of the artists that we crown and we love, a lot of them practice witchcraft.
Can you do a tarot card reading for me?
Oh my God, I wish I brought them.
Yeah, what is What are you just walking around set looking to do readings
Every
for people?
day. No, they come to me.
Oh, interesting.
They come to me.
You are a witch?
I am indeed. The witchiest witch.
I recommend to follow your intuition. Ask yourself what it is specifically that you want to know and seek out books on that. That it is worshipping the devil. I feel like that's what it's always in movies and stuff.
In her most recent concert, Taylor Swift is performing witchcraft. And I know this is gonna raise some controversy in the comments, but this just doesn't look right to me.
Wait for the signal, that'll mean you
I guess drank each other's blood might mislead people, or like people are imagining us with like goblets and we're like Game of Thrones drinking each other's blood. It's just a few drops, but yes, we do consume each other's blood on occasion for ritual purposes.
Back in 2018, Beyoncé was accused of doing black magic by her former drummer, Kimberly Thompson, and Kimberly even filed for a restraining order against Queen Bee, alleging in her court documents that Beyoncé started a campaign against her that included extreme witchcraft, dark magic, and magic spells.
This has been going on since 2006, and it's just been getting worse and worse and worse. And for a very long time, I put this person on a pedestal. I love them. I'd send emails, publicly, happy birthday and all this stuff. And the entire time, this person was casting spells and manipulating me and controlling my job situations, my relationships, just all kinds of things.
And witchcraft is more normal than a lot of people think. I think when people think of witchcraft, they think of the hat and the broomstick and the big pot with the potion and the steam coming out of it. But witchcraft, it's very normal today. A lot of things that we've normalized, it is a form of witchcraft. And it dials back to even those early feminists. And like I said, yeah, a lot of them were in occult practices and a lot of them did practice witchcraft. The more you know. Back to Elizabeth. So Elizabeth Stanton, she was the author of the Woman's Bible. She openly challenged the authority of scripture, aiming to rewrite the passages she felt were harmful to women. Gage, on the other hand, she aligned herself with spiritualism, which, if you don't know, it's a belief system that embraces mediums, seances, and communicating with spirits. And those are just two examples. These early feminists weren't just fighting for political rights, they were also fighting to dismantle the Christian framework that had shaped societies before feminism was a thing, for centuries. It's no coincidence that feminism and occult practices often go hand in hand. Even today, there's a resurgence of feminism tied to witchcraft, like I just told y'all, and New Age practices promoting ideas of self-divinity, usually rejecting biblical teachings on womanhood. And the feminist movement, from its inception, has often been more about rebellion against God than about genuine empowerment. Feminism is, in fact, in direct opposition to Christianity. Christianity by nature is a patriarchy. There's God the Father, there is Jesus Christ the Son. I don't know what to tell y'all. They're both both male. I don't know what to tell you. So to subscribe to feminism's teachings is in direct opposition to Christian teachings, and modern as well as early feminists, they know this. And in her book titled The Woman's Bible, Elizabeth Stanton famously said, and I quote, "The Bible and the church have been the greatest stumbling blocks in the way of women's emancipation." Another feminist, who was Victoria Woodhull, who was the first woman to run for president, if you don't know, she said the church, and I quote, "is the mother of all oppression. She has enslaved the body and soul of women." Another one, Simone de Beauvoir, who authored the book The Second Sex, said Christianity, and I quote, "Christianity is the most ancient and massive form of oppression of women." And Ellis Havelock, who was a friend and lover of Margaret Sanger, who was also a British sexologist, said, clutch your pearls for this one. "Had there been a lunatic asylum in the suburbs of Jerusalem, Jesus Christ would infallibly have been shut up in it at the outset of his public career. That interview with Satan on the pinnacle of the temple would alone have damned him, and everything that happened after could have confirmed the diagnosis." As insane as that was, it actually gets worse. So Margaret Sanger, who Miss Planned Parenthood herself, if you don't know who Margaret Sanger is, famously said in one of her books, the most merciful thing that the large family does to one of its infant members is to unalive it. She also said Christianity, in its attempt to protect womanhood, has led to the slaughter of women, which is ironic, being that her ideologies and her contributions, i.e. Planned Parenthood, which is the largest distributor of the pill, has actually done, and she's saying Christianity does to women. Let's move on though. Let's move on. She also stated that the church is the mother of all oppression, as well as we must remove the church from all educational and social influences and from its political powers. These are feminists that we learn about in schools. These are feminists that we're taught did so much good for women. These are feminists that are crowned today. These are feminists that have paved the way for women and saved women from all oppression. These are things that they have directly said, whether in speeches or their books. And I think that's kind of insane. And I kind of feel like the crazier part about the fact that these women were so openly against God and people, you know, learning about Christianity and then wanting to take it out of like schools and politics and doing all these things is okay, but why not tell us about it? And I feel like this is part of the reason why I have made my channel, because there's so much that we think we know that we actually don't know. There's so many things out there that are just being withheld from us as far as like the actual truth. And it's like, yeah, you told us about the accomplishments and how they paved the way for women, but you kind of left out that they hated God and they hated everything that the Bible stood for. I feel like that's, y'all don't feel like that's important? I feel like that's important. I do feel like that's important. I do. Yeah, it's yeah. So yeah, back to Miss Margaret. So according to Miss Margaret, teaching kids about God, bad. Teaching kids about sex, good. Planned Parenthood, which Margaret Sanger founded, has poured millions into comprehensive sex ed programs in America. We know that. We're here. We're in America. So taking out God and bringing in sex, I feel like that's crazy. I really do. In 2018 alone, Planned Parenthood allocated close to $300 million into sex ed programs. So me saying that they've allocated millions is probably very generous, being that they've allocated a budget for sex ed programs since the 1960s. Oh my God, Tiana, but it's sex ed and it's safe, healthy, teach kids about sex, and that's good. The average American doesn't even know how to spell chlamydia. There are men who can't point at certain things on a vagina, who couldn't even tell you what a fallopian tube is, and apparently we're confused that to be a woman, you have to have XX chromosomes, and to be a man, you have to have XY chromosomes. The sex ed and sex ed ain't Eddie. It must stand for Edward, Ed and Eddie, Eduardo. Surely it's not education. So again, where is the ed in education? Let me know down below. I'm genuinely curious. I want to know, did y'all benefit from your sex ed programs? I don't know. Did y'all? Do I need to apologize to Margaret? Let me know. So I'm just bringing that up because for her to have founded Planned Parenthood, which pours into the sex ed in our curriculum, the average person really doesn't even learn about sex from school or learn about healthy sex practices through school. All sex ed does is it brings sex to your subconscious from an early age. Yeah, argue with someone else. That's all it does. Back to feminism though. If you're like me and you're discovering, or if you were like me and you're discovering all this information about feminism and you're learning that most of the early feminists were in complete disagreement with Christianity, then why is it that a Christian country and Christian founders, why would they allow feminist practices to be in the Constitution? But just a simple explanation to why I think it is because most of the founding fathers were Christians, but in the most liberal sense. And I don't think a lot of people know that. Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, they were deists. If you don't know what that is, look it up real quick. This video is long enough. They weren't Christians at all. We had John Adams, James Madison, who were Unitarians, which basically mean they believe in God, but not the Trinity. They kind of just believe in one main thing and not all the things. Only 4 of the founding fathers were traditional and Orthodox Christians. So this country was founded on Christian suggestions, not a Christian framework. Wow, y'all are gonna hate me in this one. It's okay though. Was feminism really a grassroots movement? Now, let's talk about another lie about feminism that most people believe. That feminism was a grassroots movement created by and for women. This was a good thing. Women wanted this. Women were fighting for this. The collective of women of the time, this is what they were yearning for. We want feminism. But in reality, the suffrage movement, it wasn't as widely supported as the history books teach and claim. There was actually a robust anti-suffrage movement that included a majority of women. Yeah, I didn't know that. Did you know that? Most women at the time were actually against feminism completely and its teachings, including the goal of women's suffrage. And I know you're side-eyeing me like, no, but I want my right to vote. I get it, me too. I'm not saying we should go back. I'm just giving you the context. These women believed that political equity would harm families and overburden women, and they weren't entirely wrong. Today, we see high divorce rates. We're seeing burnout from the pressure of women of having to do it all and a breakdown in the family structure. I feel like they got some of it right. The suffrage movement succeeded not because most women wanted it, but because wealthy elites funded it. Industrialists like John D. Rockefeller supported feminist initiatives because they wanted women in the workforce. Why would they want women in the workforce? More workers meant more taxpayers and more profits. And that's actually just one example. That's just one. So again, was feminism really about empowering women, or was it about creating a system that benefited the elite? Most women at the time, they were against fighting for women to vote and getting into politics, as well as getting into they actually just wanted to stay home, be cute, and keep it cutesy. That's what the girls wanted. So the belief that women were all, in support of feminism's goals for women to be free from their oppressive husbands and fathers who just hated their lives at home, tending to their kids and their man, according to the actual history, that's incorrect.
Why do we have this idea that women were historically oppressed? Were they actually oppressed? If you go back and read their writings at the time in the 17th, 18th, 19th century, they said, no, we're privileged. And then you'll hear a feminist say something like, well, but they couldn't have bank accounts. But they never tell you why. It's because legally, women could not be held responsible for supporting the family. Women could not accrue debt that way.
Yeah.
And what would be the point of a woman owning a bunch of land if she can't make the land produce anything? She can't defend the land against people who might come and try to take it. There were practical reasons for these things. Why would we want to task women with defense of persons and property? So why would we want to grant them voting rights?
Baby, the women wanted no parts, actually.
I swear, if I could go back in time and tell the woman that stood up for our right to work, I would.
I got a bone to pick with whatever group of females thought it was cool to put the pancakes down in the morning and pick up a motherfucking work detail. y'all want to work so bad. Y'all don't want to be at home cooking French toast and pancakes and shit and getting lunch and dinner ready for the kiddos. Now you want to now you want to be independent so bad, but now you need somebody to come help you. I ain't never wanted to go work. I ain't never wanted to go to work. But thanks to kudos to the group of women who wanted to be like men so bad.
Women's studies and radical feminism, and feminists will attempt to discredit those women of the anti-suffrage movement as ditzy women who weren't educated enough to know better, or who didn't know better than to fight against their own rights because they just didn't have sense. But the truth and the fact is these women were actually authors like Mary Ward. We had civic and charity workers like Ann Mayer and Anna Maxwell, educators like Josephine Dodge, journalists like Ida Tarbell, and activists like Laura Clay. These weren't just ditzy women. These were women who were also contributing to society. And just one example of how unpopular the suffrage movement was, in 1895 in Massachusetts, only 22,000 women voted for the right to vote, despite 600,000, almost 600,000 of them being eligible to vote for the bill. They actually voted against it. It wasn't because these women had internalized misogyny or wanted their own oppression or were fearful. These women wanted nothing to do with being equal to men, because these women, they saw their value in different ways outside of going to work and being involved in politics. They believed that women are much more influential and effective outside direct involvement in politics. And before y'all shun me and you're like, oh my God, girl, I need my job, I need my coin, I want to get my money, I want to vote, do all these things. Same. This video and this portion of the video is not me saying I wish we were to go back to the Victorian era and we were just dependent on men to vote and to get money. That's not what I'm saying, because I do enjoy both those rights. But my goal in sharing this with you guys is to give you a better understanding of what actually took place during the suffrage movement era and the early beginning beliefs of the first wave, second wave feminists, and how it correlates with what we're seeing today. We're seeing trends where women are literally complaining about the fact that they've gotten to the top of their corporate job and they're stressed.
I accidentally girl bossed too hard, and now I have a real job with real responsibilities, and like people keep emailing me and asking me questions and I don't know the answer, and I'm just really stressed out and I don't want to girl boss anymore.
Put a finger down if you accidentally girl bossed way too hard, ended up with 3 college degrees, and you are a licensed attorney, but now your only aspiration in life is to be a stay-at-home mom.
After you work this job and then you have your baby, you don't feel like going to work. You just want to take care of this baby. There are women who are saying like, oh, I want to be with a man where if I get pregnant, I have a choice and I have to clock in.
Please just normalize smart, intelligent women wanting to be stay-at-home mothers and working part-time like 1 to 2 times a week, because honestly, like, the thought of having to wake up every day for the rest of my life and go to work in order to live and eat and provide for my non-existent children right now is really nauseating. Really, really nauseating.
I think I like this little life. This little life.
Yo, after I had my baby, I went back to work for like 2 days. I already knew I was quitting, but I just went back for 2 days to get my resignation or whatever. And it was the hardest 2 days of my life. Like, I literally wanted to cry the whole time I was there. I just feel like 12 weeks is just not enough time for maternity leave. And I know some women get a shorter amount of time than that. And
I'm 39 weeks pregnant at work, and people keep asking me like, oh, when's your due date? When's your due date? And I'm like, oh, next Tuesday. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah. This is America, babe.
Or if I do have my baby, I have the choice to stay at home for a few years to take care of my baby. These are things that women are saying today in 2024. They want princess treatment. They want to be in a situation where their man is taking care of them. So I'm not saying that we should go back to an oppressive Victorian era, but what I am saying that some of these predictions that the anti-suffragists were saying where, you know, things might become unbalanced when women start to involve themselves in things that mostly men get excited off of. I'm not saying that women shouldn't be in politics and we shouldn't be doing the things that we're doing now and accomplishing the things that we're accomplishing. But maybe it'll give us a little bit more context to why we feel the way that we feel. And hopefully it can normalize some of your emotions where you're like, wow, like I've gotten the degrees, I've gotten the job, why am I not fulfilled? Oh, you know, I might be a mom, but it's something in me feels a little bit bad about maybe not seeing my kids for a certain amount of time during the week because I have to be at work and my husband's at work and no one's really at home with the kids, or you only have time to spend time with your kids for dinner. And also, like, just how they're saying that women have more influence outside of politics and we kind of do our thing in different ways than men. You know your man. You know how to read your man. Like, I don't have to sit there and debate you like in politics, or I don't have to debate you like a man and argue down with you like how you'd argue with your homeboys. I can kind of do my thing because I know what works for my man. And I feel like that's what the early feminists were saying. So hopefully that makes sense. And also, like, when you put down like your offense or just how new this might all be, because when I was reading about this, y'all, I was kind of in shock about everything. I'm like, oh my God, it was information overload. And this video is actually gonna probably be so long because there's just so much information. I believe the anti-suffragists were saying, as women, our strengths are in different places. We can persuade our man to do different things. We don't have to necessarily put ourselves into politics and in men's spaces to have power. Eve showed it to us like Eve did in the beginning, and I just feel like those women, they might not have hated their lives that much. I just don't believe that the women that were voting against this, if they had enough knowledge to vote against it, that they didn't have enough knowledge to vote for it. The anti-suffragists also asserted that the primary role of government is to protect people as well as property, and that men are the only ones capable of that task. Now, before you get your panties in a bunch and you're like, women, no, women, no. I hope all of you that are here, you know, y'all know me enough to, we think logical over here. We think of both perspectives and we try to come to a logical conclusion. I hope at minimum that we can acknowledge that, like, in certain, like, let's say in dangerous and extremely dangerous situations and life and death situations, naturally men and women react different. Women have to train to have the same natural inclinations that men have to protect and defend their families and countries. A man and a woman, they can train for the same amount of time for the same thing, and a man will come out still 3 times stronger and more lean than the woman. And for my fellow gym girlies, y'all know how hard it is. Like, it's extremely difficult for women to build and keep on muscle. Your homeboy or your man gets in the gym for 3 seconds, 10-pack. Excuse me? I've been in the gym 3 months and I'm working for the little 2 that I got. Men and women were built differently. I don't think these anti-suffragists were saying, yeah, men are better, da, 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 da. I think they were literally just a little bit more in reality, and they were able to acknowledge the fact that some things, let's leave it to the men. Some things, let's leave it to the women. Like I said, women can train. There are women in the Navy, there are women in the Army, there are women who are police officers, there are women who are fighters, wrestlers, all these things. Obviously, we know that women are capable of doing these things, but even in these things, you have women and men's sports separate, because the strength of a man and the strength of a woman, it's very different. The biological makeup of men and women are different. As I stated earlier, women are now more educated than at any other point that we've been in history. We're in executive positions for Fortune 500 companies. We're employed. We're getting our coins. We're doing all these things. But even then, the roles and the positions that more women lean towards, it still caters to our natural inclinations of being nurturers. We have a lot of women nurses, we have caregivers, we have a lot of things that women still do today, regardless of how educated. It still coincides with our natural inclinations. I don't know not one woman at the oil rig. I don't know any woman who wants to be enlisted for the draft in case the draft happens. I don't know any woman that be doing the things that the sailors be doing. I'm gonna insert a clip, but it's okay to acknowledge that men are just gonna want to do certain stuff that women just aren't gonna do, and I don't feel like that's a bad thing.
All hands, hoist the colors high. Evil thieves and beggars, never shall we die. All together, hoist the colors high. Evil thieves and beggars, never shall we die. The bell
feel like the anti-suffragists acknowledge that they might have worded it a little bit harsh. To be like, oh, only men can protect, which I'm not necessarily in opposition of that, because if I'm married and someone invades my husband and I's home, I mean, yeah, I do what I can to defend the home, but I definitely expect him to get up, get the gun, and figure it out. The kids and I will be over here. You, Mr. Husband, intruder? And I feel like that's okay. Like, even let's just put down our offenses. Like, if you're at home with your man, your husband, your fiance, your boyfriend, whoever, if somebody were to invade your home, somebody were to knock down, you would expect that man to get up and protect and do something. The feminism goes out everybody's body when it comes to protection. Suddenly, oh, why didn't you protect me? Why didn't you defend me? Because there are just certain things that we expect from men because you're a man. You're supposed to defend me. You're supposed to protect me. It's little things like that. You expect a man to want to face the door, so if something happens, he can protect you. He can get both of y'all out of the situation. There are certain things that we need to just be honest about. Like, it's okay to be like, yeah, I want the man to do that. I want a man to protect me in that way. That's fine. And I believe the early anti-suffragists, they acknowledge that as well. But like I said, this is not the page where we're going to get offended and attack each other for thoughts and stuff. I hope we're all logical enough to put down our offenses and acknowledge that men are better at getting in the field. And we actually expect them to get in the field. And despite the anti-suffrage movement being more popular amongst women, its success years later, today, yeah, that did not happen because most women wanted it, like I said, but instead because wealthy elites funded it. Like a handful of them. Industrialists like John D. Rockefeller supported feminist initiatives because they wanted women in the workforce, because more workers meant more taxpayers and more profits. And these prominent men, like John Rockefeller, they saw feminism as a way to accomplish their shared spiritual beliefs with the feminists, such as spiritualism, rejection of Orthodox Christianity, belief in personal divinity, self-godhood, theosophy, mysticism, humanism, goddess worship, rebellion against tradition, and the list goes on. I believe it was more spiritual than anything. And included in this group of elitists were not just white feminists, as most believe, but there were also wealthy men who identified as suffragists, even going as far as to create organizations like the Men's League for Women's Suffrage, and a very wealthy George Train who funded Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Stanton's newspaper, The Revolution. Women's suffrage wasn't just a bunch of white, wealthy women. It was bigger than that. The feminism movement and the success of the suffrage movement, it was bigger than just a bunch of wealthy white women. It was way deeper than that. The anti-suffragettes believed that political equality would harm families and overburden women. Today, like I said, we see high divorce rates, burnout from the pressure of having to do it all and have it all as women, and the breakdown in the family structure that we're seeing today. So is feminism really about empowering women, or was it really a means of creating a system that benefited the wealthy elite? Victorian women's success without feminism. And to add on top of the list of things that they don't tell you, here's another one. Women in the Victorian era, they weren't as oppressed as we've been led to believe. While marriage and motherhood were central to many women's lives at this time, others achieved amazing things, remarkable things without relying on feminism. Isabella Bird, for example, she was a world traveler and writer who ventured into spaces most men of her era wouldn't even dare to go. You have Mary Seacole, a Jamaican nurse and businesswoman who broke through racial and gender barriers to make her mark during the Crimean War. Or Florence Nightingale, another one who didn't need feminism. She revolutionized healthcare during the Crimean War, and she transformed nursing into a respected profession and improved public health worldwide. She didn't advocate for feminist causes or challenge traditional gender roles. Instead, what she did was she used the societal expectation of women as caregivers to carve out a path of influence, proving that women could lead without challenging traditional roles and the roles of men and women in society. Victorian women could also divorce. They could inherit property. They could rise to prominence in their chosen fields. These achievements prove that women were capable of thriving without dismantling traditional gender roles or adopting feminist ideologies. And when we look back and we think about our gender studies class or women's studies class, we call early feminists rebellious. It's important to understand what that really meant. They weren't seen as rebellious because they were fighting to do things women weren't allowed to do. Many women were already excelling in various roles. They were considered rebellious because most women didn't see the point in striving to be equal to men. For many Victorian women, their goal wasn't to imitate men, but to excel in their own spaces, whether as moms, educators, entrepreneurs, or trailblazers in their fields. You don't need to be a man to be great as a woman. You don't need to do what men do to be great as a woman. This perspective, it challenges the modern idea that women's historical achievements can only be attributed to feminism. Instead, it shows that many women thrived by working within structures of their time and finding creative ways to exert influence and independence. In fact, some of their greatest accomplishments came from embracing their femininity rather than rejecting it, proving the strength and value of traditional roles and being feminine. This isn't to say, make it clear, this isn't to say that the Victorian era was a perfect time of harmony between the sexes, but it does offer a more complex picture that women weren't helpless victims waiting for feminism to save them. They were active agents of change. They were already making meaningful contributions and leaving lasting legacies within the boundaries of what made sense. Feminism did not save these women. In fact, they probably proved that they didn't need saving at all. The flaws of early feminists, starting with Margaret Sanger. And the most that a lot of people know about Margaret Sanger is that she founded Planned Parenthood, and yay, she's great, an icon. But being that she claimed to be so for the family unit, her actual actions, they contradict that. And just to give you an example, to pursue her career, she left her husband and children to focus on her activism. She was traveling Europe and was actually pursuing an affair while ignoring multiple attempts from her husband, William Sanger, to reconcile.
That perhaps that moved you a good deal, because the fact remains that you led a movement against overwhelming pressures that stemmed back for centuries. And in doing so, according to your autobiography, you even left your first husband. And you wrote this to a friend, Mrs. Sanger. You said, "Where is the man to give me what the movement gives in joy and interest and freedom?" Now,
the man just wanted his family back. He just wanted his girl back. He wanted the kids as moms. But despite their issues, William deeply loved Margaret and wanted to repair their relationship despite the fact that she was cheating on him. He just wanted to fix it, like I said. Not just for him, but for the sake of their 2 children as well. Someone had to be an adult. Margaret was outside, okay? While Margaret pursued her ambitions, William stepped up to keep the family intact. Margaret's sons, they later shared how often she left them for long periods of time with family, friends, and relatives, and her frequent absences and neglect reveal a clear disconnect between her public persona and what she would claim to get people to rally behind her movement and her ideologies versus the reality of her personal life and what she would actually do. Because if you're telling me that you care so much about motherhood and giving women the choice to be good mothers and you care about the family, then why is it that in your personal life it doesn't really reflect that? And I do believe it is important to talk about these things because we see Planned Parenthood everywhere. So who are the people that we're being taught about? Who are the people that are in charge of these corporations that are a part of our everyday lives? Like, most people at least one time in their lives have been to a Planned Parenthood. So I feel like it is important to know the thought process and the mindset of the person who created this thing that you're being told, oh, this is a great thing. This is a good thing. This is wonderful. So, yeah. Now, the pattern of contradictions for Margaret, it extended to her work with Planned Parenthood. While Sanger framed birth control as a way to empower women, her motivations were rooted in eugenics. And I feel like a lot of people don't know eugenics and population control. That was her whole shtick. In a 1921 article, she wrote, and I quote, "The most merciful thing that the large family does to one of its infant members is to kill it," which is actually very insane to say, and not a lot of people know that she was a eugenicist. This ideology shaped her infamous Negro Project, which targeted Black communities under the guise of healthcare. In reality, a push to suppress the population of Black people in America. Her policies disproportionately affected minority groups, immigrants, and the poor, who were often coerced into sterilization or provided with unsafe experimental contraceptives.
In the eyes of some, Margaret Sanger has been a heroine. In the eyes of others, she's been a destructive force.
In her own words, Sanger pushed for a society that limited births to those she deemed fit to have children.
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born.
Where did Margaret Sanger focus her efforts on propagandizing birth control? In Black communities, in minority communities. And so what I think many Black Americans don't understand today is that abortion is never a tool of empowerment or freedom for anyone, certainly not for those that the left has disproportionately targeted to decrease their population numbers. Today, Black women of childbearing age are about 4% of American population, but they obtain almost 40% of the nation's abortions, fulfilling Margaret Sanger's dreams. They're trying to eradicate you and kill you in the name of racism and eugenics, but they call it healthcare and female empowerment.
It was actually Margaret Sanger who you can go look up and read what she wrote. She was the founder of Planned Parenthood, and she had developed this strategy to go to the churches to tell them to teach people that abortion was a choice and it was their reproductive rights. And she said, the black people really believe in their ministers. She wrote this in a letter. You can go read it today. And she said, we can never let it get out that we want to exterminate the Black race. But they have a lot of faith in the ministry. So let's go through the churches to get this idea out there. So we have to be very careful.
I am not making any of this up. Look it up. Most of it is on Wikipedia, actually. We just don't know what to look for, but that's all you got me. The effects of Margaret Sanger's legacies are still evident today. Birth control, once touted as a tool of liberation, is now prescribed for nearly everything. Irregular periods, acne, endometriosis, or a simple quick fix to avoid pregnancy. The average girl in America starts taking birth control around the age of 13 and often doesn't stop until her 20s or her 30s. That is over a decade of hormonal manipulation, which has been scientifically proven to cause long-term harm to women. But when you go to these institutions, whether it's Planned Parenthood or wherever you're going, and you're prescribed birth control for whatever issue that you present the doctor with, you're not being told, you're told about maybe the minor things that may happen. Oh, this might happen, but they never tell you about the long-term effects that a lot of women have later on in their lives as a byproduct of being on birth control for a long period of time. And just girl to girl, birth control, other than the fact that it prevents pregnancy, the cons do outweigh the pros.
I was on birth control for 18 years, maybe 4 weeks since I've been off the juice. Honey, let me tell you something. Your girl was not prepared. There's a lot to the pill that we're not discussing, and a lot that it masks that it doesn't actually heal. So when you get off of it, you experience a lot of the things that you had before. And that's just the facts. I'm mind blown by a medication that I've been taking for the past 18 years that I didn't know anything about or what it was doing to my body.
I remember the first time that I got on birth control. I was 16 years old, maybe even 15. We drove to Planned Parenthood, me and my girlfriends, and we all four got on it at the same time. So we take this pill at a young age, and we have no idea the repercussions that it has on your hormones and your moods and your weight gain. You gain 20 pounds.
All of it.
It's wild. Even it gives you hyperpigmentation. There was no talk about this.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but get off birth control. If you're on birth control, get off immediately. I don't care if you got on birth control because you not trying to have kids, or if you got on for a health reason. I got on birth control for a health reason, and I was on birth control from 15 to 19. So I'm gonna let y'all do the math. But I stopped taking it and I'm not going back ever again. Like, I don't care what form it is, stop taking it. Because one, there's other ways to prevent pregnancy. But two, if you're doing it for a health reason like I was, it's not even fixing your health issue. It's just like smothering it or like muting it. And so why not really just get to the root of the issue instead of trying to cover it up?
I need to rant about birth control because this thing literally ruined me. 6 months following me going off birth control, my health declined so much it's not even funny. Also, let me start with the fact that I'm already gluten-free, dairy-free, avoid seed oils. Time last year, I was a track athlete in college, living like the healthiest lifestyle. I've been an athlete my whole entire life. My mom owns a gym. She's never had bad food in the house. Literally no reason for me to suffer from the things that I've been suffering from since I stopped birth control. So first, let's start. All of a sudden, I start getting these terrible stomach issues where if I literally drink water, I looked completely like pregnant. Find a picture. Do you guys know I'm not exaggerating? Then every symptom of my hyperthyroidism was like on blast. The heart palpitations, the not being able to sleep, the moon face, the sensitivity to temperature. All of it got worse. So to help this, I stopped eating food from the dining hall and I started cooking for myself, and my health was still getting worse. By the time I got home from school last year, I didn't even recognize myself. Even though more than half of it was inflammation, I looked like I gained at least 15 pounds. So things keep getting worse. Usually always taking the holistic route, but I didn't know what to do anymore. I get an endoscopy. I have a hiatal hernia. I'm still not seeing improvement. Then I get diagnosed with H. pylori, which if you don't know what that is, it's like a bacteria in your gut. It is extremely stubborn and very hard to get rid of. I've tried taking medication for that and it just made me so absolutely sick. I have healed myself so much since I came home from school last year. I definitely lost all of the inflammation and weight and I feel much better. There are certain things that I'm still struggling with so much every day. I'm finally seeing a professional, going to a holistic doctor. Today's day one of me being on a new gut regimen, which is why I'm drinking yerba mate instead of coffee because I have to cut out caffeine. But I have a lot of tests coming up and hopefully a lot of results coming soon. But basically, back to the moral of the story, the point of this video, I literally think birth control is the cause of all of this because there's nothing in my life that I can pinpoint that makes sense for me to have all of the problems that I do today, and they all started after birth control.
I just feel like it's not very woman friendly. The things that it does to our bodies over time, the weight gain, the hormonal changes, you don't feel like yourself. You literally are a different person when you are on birth control. Why aren't we talking about that? And why are we prescribing it like it's nothing? Like if you go into the doctor as a woman and you're sharing like something minuscule or something going on with you that could be a fix in your diet, it could be a change in lifestyle, they're gonna prescribe you birth control. Why is this being pushed onto us? Why is birth control the solution of everything? What if I don't want to control the birth? Like I just have acne. Studies show links between prolonged use of birth control and increased risk of blood clots and depression, cardiovascular issues, and even infertility. It disrupts the woman's body's natural hormonal balance, and it leaves a lot of women dealing with the fallout for years after stopping or getting off of birth control. What's even more concerning is how casually, like I was saying, birth control is handed out. Instead of addressing the root causes of health concerns, many doctors simply prescribe it as a one-size-fits-all solution, and it is not. Young girls are often left in the dark about the potential side effects or long-term consequences, creating a cycle of dependency that disconnects them from their own bodies. You have no idea why you feel the way that you feel because the doctor only tells you, yeah, you might have a headache, you might throw up. They're not telling you about all the things that may happen if you get on this birth control or however you're doing it. Margaret and other early feminists claim to be fighting for women's liberation, but their actions tell a more complicated story. Whether it's the breakdown of family structures, the exploitation of minority groups, or the physical toll of widespread birth control use, the legacy of their ambitions, it has left many women worse off. Feminism did not liberate women. It often led them into deeper struggles disguised as progress. Today's feminism does more harm than good. Now, after the infinite waves of feminism, I don't know which one we're on, 4th or 5th, and all the different ways women are being told to free themselves from the shackles of the patriarchy.
How loud, how kind, respectful, how cute, men will still hate you.
Women are talking about bringing that 4B movement right here to the United States.
Operation 4B.
Refuse to date men, get married, have sex with them, or children.
All I have to say is good luck getting laid. Me and my girlies are participating in the 4B movement.
No more kitty cat for moderate men.
And all the things that the patriarchy wants us to be. Clearly, they don't about us.
No attention to men. Delete block. Do not respond to them.
It is the best thing I've ever done for my mental health. I'm not crazy. We have to do this together.
Yeah, feminism no longer serves women, in my opinion, in 2025. Feminism has now become a tool to villainize men, not hold women accountable for the things that we do play a part in that we complain about. Feminism tells us that because our liberation is tied into feeding every sexual urge you have with any and every man that you feel an attraction to, what that does long term is it does emasculate men to no longer do things that they naturally do that we actually like lead, be dominant, be competitive, be chivalrous, yearn for the woman that you want instead of just having sex with all of them. Because feminism has taught us to call everything that they do toxic masculinity. And now we see trends on social media asking for these very things for men, not knowing that we actually play a part in a lot of the reasons why men don't do these things anymore. Despite the fact that a lot of the things that we're calling men toxic for doing, men have been doing since the beginning of time. And these are things that we actually enjoy them doing. But not everything a man does is toxic. In my personal opinion, I believe that there are masculine men and there are weak men. When a man does something that harms a woman or a child or puts a woman or a child in jeopardy or in danger, that is not a masculine man. That is a weak man. No masculine man, no strong man ever feels the need to harm a woman or a child to gain his masculinity. I don't believe that a man doing certain things and leading and doing certain things that they naturally do because they have a bunch of testosterone in their body is toxic. I don't feel like everything men do is toxic, and we're constantly saying everything, oh, that's toxic. The way you explain this, oh, that's toxic. The way you don't do this, oh, that's toxic. But it's just like, okay, when do the men? At what point do y'all want the testosterone to kick in? Because you can't ask a man to lead, but you hate how he leads. You hate how he does things. You can't ask a man to protect you, but when he does things around that, you don't like that. You can't ask a man to do things and have the initiative when there's constantly women telling him, if you do this, you're making me feel inferior. You're making me feel like, it's just like, what do they do? Men will always do what women allow. Men will always follow suit alongside women. If they're constantly being told that the natural things that they have the urges to do, like that masculine men normally do, is bad and it's toxic. And this is not me saying that toxic masculinity isn't a thing, but I do feel like we've just kind of put that on every single thing that men do. And it kind of contradicts the things that we want. Do we want them to lead? Do we want them to make us leave our brains at home? Do we want them to protect us? Do we want them to be competitive? Do we want them to have to, do we want it or do we not? Do we want it or is it toxic? What do we want? Like I said, I believe that there are masculine men and I believe that there are weak men. A lot of the things that we're calling toxic masculinity, it's usually tied to traits of a weak man. It's not toxic masculinity that man is just weak. Whatever that thing may be that you're calling toxic, he's probably just a weak man. Masculine men, weak men. Not everything that they do is toxic. That's my hot take. I do believe since both genders were equally made to complement each other, what one does or doesn't do will always affect the other. Feminists will say that they fight for all women, but what that actually means is that they're fighting for women with their same beliefs, not those who choose a more traditional path, not those who don't find fulfillment in outdoing men and competing with men. Radical feminists are also the catalyst for why there are so many men who feel comfortable cosplaying as their outward perception of what they believe a woman to be. You slap on a dress, you put a wig on, you put on some lipstick, you disregard the beard, you disregard the jawline, you ignore the chest hair, ignore the clear differences between the build between a man and a woman, ignore your eyes, ignore the truth and reality, because the feminists say if a man feels like a woman, he should be addressed as such.
Wow.
Messi on the U.S. women's national team? Hell yeah.
Would you
because
allow
that would
Usain
mean-
Bolt to do that and be in the sprinting
Yes,
team?
because that would mean they're a trans woman. They identify as women.
I get it. So just to be clear, you'd let Lionel Messi play in the women's national football team and destroy
Hell yeah,
women's football
welcome.
forever. You'd let Usain Bolt...
it'd be very difficult to get a ticket, which would suck.
I want to do a little checklist here. You'd let Usain Bolt compete as a sprinter in the American women's Olympic team?
Yes.
Okay. You would let Floyd Mayweather compete as a boxer in the women's American boxing team?
Yeah,
You
of
are
course
a
you have to be
complete
like the
and utter
heavyweight.
lunatic.
Feminists quite literally don't know how to define what a woman is. So I'm just a little confused how you can be fighting for the rights of something you cannot even define. When having the woman title just be up for grabs by anyone simply because they identify as one, that's not enough.
Okay, well, Michael, do you know what the leading cause of death for pregnant people is?
Pregnant people?
Mm-hmm.
Mothers? Women?
If you'd like to call them mothers, not all of them are mothers, but if you'd like to call them that,
What are they if they're not mothers?
they're pregnant people.
What people other than mothers are pregnant?
Does it bother you to use inclusive language?
Well,
It's just interesting
I
because-
prefer to use precise language.
It's interesting because you come into this conversation, trying to hold this moral superiority, but then when I
try to
use-
be moral when I can, but I...
Right, but when I use inclusive language, which it only takes a couple extra syllables to use inclusive language,
To include
and
who?
it seems to include people who don't, identify as women but can become pregnant.
Anyone, including men, can mother
No.
and play
No.
the role of a
Men,
mother.
father.
Piers, would you...
Women, mother. That's because the titles are male and female titles.
Okay, to mother and to father are not gender specific.
They are gender specific.
No, they're not.
Why are we pretending
the
otherwise?
Skills
Of course
to
they're
mother
gender
and to
specific.
father can be
Are
acquired.
you a woman?
I am a woman, but I'm also capable of the skills it takes to father a child.
Mm.
Similarly, you are a man and you are capable of the skills to mother a child.
Mothers are women. I hate to break it to you.
Okay,
I know
can
we're
I-
not allowed to
let
say this anymore, but it's an insult to every damn mother in
You're
this country.
What is a woman?
A woman is anyone who wants to identify as one.
Does anyone else want to? I mean, what is a woman?
It's what they identify as.
That's a circular. You cannot. A cat is a cat because they are a cat. That's not like. This isn't a gotcha. It's just a genuine question. Hold on. Hold on. Go ahead.
I didn't have anything to say yet.
But what is a woman?
A person?
No, but what is the definition of what is a woman?
I don't know, I'm confused now.
Actually told you I'm about to debate this
I'm not on that
movie.
segment. Guys, ask the next guest.
What is a woman?
What do you mean ask the next guest? I said ask the next guest.
You don't know what a woman is?
A woman is someone who defines as a woman, period, done. Next
anyone?
Next guest, please.
Anyone?
And I feel like a lot of people don't really speak up just about, and this is not like, I want to make something clear because I do bring this up a lot. I don't care how anybody chooses to live their life. However you feel like you want to present yourself to the world, you're in a country that allows you to do it. Exercise that right. The disconnect for me is when we're now having to have regular everyday people step outside of reality to make sense of yours. I don't care what you do with your life. I just don't want you to say you're a woman when I'm a woman and I'm like, no, this is not the experience of, this is not what it means to be a woman spiritually. This is not what women deal with. Men are men and women are women. Men cannot be women and women cannot be men. And I know I might get a lot of hate for saying that, but it is the truth. And I feel like that whole thing has gotten really far because for a long time, feminists were the voice of women. And I feel like during the last few months, I clearly saw a disconnect between actual women in the everyday world and radical feminists. You cannot say you are fighting for women's rights, and when someone asks you to define what a woman is, you cannot say, oh yeah, it's just a adult human female. It's a human being with XX chromosomes. If you cannot simply just say that, who are you actually fighting for? Feminists literally cannot see how it can be harmful to women to include men in certain spaces. And this is not because men are bad people, but for the men that are bad people who see this whole trendy trans thing as a way to be around women and to be in children and women's spaces, that they will do it and they have done it. Feminists can't understand why it's absolutely insane for a biological man, regardless of how much hormones he's taken or the amount of procedures that he's had, it will always be an unfair advantage for a man to train the way men are able to train compared to women and compete with those women as well. And just a more general example, people will say, cancel Rachel Dolezal. I don't know if y'all remember that whole story, because She's a white woman and she's acting black and she's cosplaying as black, but let's have a bunch of men cosplay as women because being a woman is apparently just a concept. It is not a reality. And another thing is like a lot of women want the benefits of a traditional marriage where a man pays for most of the heavy things and the big things, where he leads and he protects his home, where he makes his wife feel safe, where he's a high value man that can still cover the bills if you decide you don't want to clock in. If you decide you just want to focus on creating life. A lot of women want a husband that will ensure that the kids are always taken care of financially. Women also want to be treated like delicate flowers and these soft beings and be treated like princesses because we're just girls, while also being outside and acting like pit bulls because feminism says so. The things we've subscribed to feminism's teachings. You don't need no man. Oh, you're a boss chick, you're an independent woman, and you want a husband, but nobody can tell you what to do. It's like, okay, at some point, we have to at least understand that although it is a great thing to be a woman who's capable of doing her own thing and to be a woman who's reliable on herself, is not fully dependent on any other person, while it is important for women to have their own achievements and pursue their own passions, because I do believe that we each have individual purposes and the person that you do choose to marry should align with those goals, feminism encourages women to focus entirely on personal success, degrees, careers, and accolades, at the expense of our natural, nurturing instincts. Biologically, women are wired to nurture, whether it's relationships, children, or communities. As we age, our bodies and instincts remind us of this. Yet feminism tells us to suppress these urges until we've achieved everything else. The result? What we're seeing today: burnout, frustration, and a generation of women who just feel unfulfilled and lost. Very successful, but very unfulfilled. Couldn't finish my video without my hot take. Here's Tiana's hot take. Based on what women and men are doing today and how we treat each other as far as sex and love and marriage, there's no, oh, y'all are gonna hate me. There's no logical reason for a man to be loyal to any woman until he's ready to get married. And I know y'all are gonna hate me for it, but I believe that it is true. And this isn't me speaking at y'all. This is me, who's also a woman experiencing this dating pool, who's a part of Gen Z with y'all. I'm in the ghetto with y'all. If it's trendy for women to always show skin and be sexy and wear BBL fashion, we are literally making ourselves a visual playground for men. There's no more mystery. There's no more desire to have to pursue a woman in order to see what's going on or to get access to something that they used to have to work for. And there's kind of this imbalance in the type of media representation that we see in music and entertainment, especially with Black women, that encourages girls and young women to just treat sex like a whatever, like a game. If he's cute, have sex with him. If he has a bag, have sex with him. If he's wearing jewelry, have sex with him. If he's tall, have sex with him. If he has tattoos, have sex with him. Do what you want. You're sexually liberated. Like literally from a man's point of view, just trying to understand from a man's point of view, if sex is that easily attained and accessible, why in the world would they just want one? Why would they want to settle down? And women are becoming increasingly more sexually immoral and frivolous, like we're kind of just treating sex like whatever. And we're literally seeing in real time the effects of everyone just being so sexual. It's now gotten to the point where both men and women, we don't even see each other's actual values outside of just fulfilling sexual urges and desires. I feel like a change in that will start to happen when women start to understand their value genuinely and when we hold ourselves and each other accountable for things. Stop normalizing whole culture. Stop giving platforms to women who don't make sense for what you want in the future. Stop viewing other women as your competition. Stop worshiping men. Set boundaries and stick to them when it comes to men. When you say no, they will listen. When we collectively say no, they will follow suit. Stop joining every single fashion trend that exposes your body. Not saying you to be holier than thou. Not saying you to be holier than thou. I'm not saying that. But when you lead with your body and you expose too much to where there's no mystery, men are going to pursue you for your body and what you can offer them physically. And then you find yourself entertaining a situationship from a man who is just lusting over you. And all that does is it lowers your self-esteem. If you do it enough times, your self-esteem will actually be in hell. Yeah. because you're going to start associating him not loving you or treating you right or sharing mutual feelings with a lack on your end, right? Or something that you're not doing. Whole time, he fell for the body, he fell for the booty, he fell for the gruff. He got you in bed and then he fell for the body and the sex, and that's kind of where it capped. Stop leading with things about you that are outward. You're more than that. And until women start to value ourselves and each other, yeah, we're actually all going to be in hell in like a couple years. It's not that far off. Yeah, truly. So where does that leave us in 2025? Feminism has undoubtedly, it has shaped the modern world, but at what cost? Is it really benefiting women? Has things changed? Is it something deeper, something spiritual, more political? Ultimately, self-serving in a sense. It's time that we talk about these things. Let's talk about what feminism is telling us to do. It's time that we dig deeper into these narratives that we've been fed and start asking hard questions about who benefits from these practices and these ideologies and why. And that's it for me. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I hope it was informative. I hope you at least took away something that you didn't know before. And I really want to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. And I didn't address this earlier, but I am in a different setting because I am currently in the process of moving and switching apartments. So it's gonna be a location change, hence what you're seeing now. But hopefully the quality was good. Hopefully the information was still good. And make sure you guys follow me on Instagram. I told myself I was gonna be more active on there. Y'all, when it comes to Instagram, when you stop posting, you accidentally stop posting forever. Like, I have not posted in months, and I kinda don't wanna get back on, but I will. I'll get back on Instagram. I love to get cute and dress up and do all those things. But yeah, make sure you guys follow me on there. If you've gotten this far in the video, subscribe. Like, you love it here, and you know you love it here. You know you love to hear me out. It's okay. Just subscribe. Just stay. It's okay. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
I've been all in my phone. I got options, and I don't wanna tell you to drop it.